Welcome back to Our City Culture. I am Matt.
Jason.
I guess I'm still John.
And we have Fred Minnick's top 2 whiskeys of the year for 2021. Let's get drinking.
Oh, yeah. So, just like Matt said, we have the number 1 and number 2 whiskey of 2021, according to Fred Minnick. I'm sure there's some other lists out there, but I think anybody listening for bourbon or rye knows that name. So the first one, the number 1 whiskey of the year 2021 is Russell's Reserve 13-year-old.
That's number 1.
It's never been open before, or like we've drank 80% of it.
Do you think over
when we bought the bottle, it actually only comes half full. That's
do you think
part of
they're
the
over there
novelty.
going, we're number 1? We're number 1.
Probably.
I think so.
Yeah. So these guys are for sure. So this is Barrell Spirit. This is a rye. So the reason this is the whiskeys of the year is because this is a rye, which is not a bourbon, and this is a bourbon, which is not a rye. So whiskeys.
I think we've had this conversation before.
We have. I've heard this before. Squares and rectangles. Squares and rectangles. So which one do you want to start with? You want to start with the rye or the bourbon? We'll kind of talk and then pour about it.
You want to go? Let's go. Actually,
let's do bourbon.
Let's do 1 then 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So the number 1 whiskey of the year from Fred Minnick and most other people you'll see list, I guarantee this is top 3. Like this is the first time they've released this. This is a 13-year-old Russell's Reserve pick, and it is coming in at 114.8 proof.
Yeah.
So we will pour a little bit of that one. If you compare this one, let me pour and I'll talk.
You stopped talking.
I did. So if you compare this to a regular Russell's Reserve that you will find in your store, any store at 10-year-old, anytime, it is 90 proof. So 10-year-old 90 proof is regular Russell's Reserve. If you do the private barrel selection, so a single barrel, private barrel pick from Russell's Reserve, they range between 8 years and 11 years, and they're about 110 proof. That's where they come in at.
Right.
This one, 13 years, and it's 114.8. But from everything I've read, there's older stock in this. This is not a single barrel. So this is a small batch or a blend, whatever. Right. But I've heard there's much older stock in here. I don't know how much older, maybe 17 years, 15 years. But this...
Is that a rumor?
That's a rumor. Word on the street, bro. So, I'm a big Wild Turkey fan. I'm a big Russell's Reserve fan. I like the higher rye that they offer.
And Russell's is Wild Turkey.
He is. So, Jimmy Russell is the master distiller. Eddie Russell's his son, who is, I think they're actually, what's it say on there, Matt? Are they co-master distillers? How's that worded?
From father, son, the bourbon making masters.
Okay.
So it says they are.
It's in the blue at the bottom. It's got their name signatures.
English.
It just, they both say master distiller.
Okay, so it's dual master distillers, but this one should be good. Oh. So, what do you think of the nose, Jeff? I know you just tried some.
Got a little bit of heat.
Okay.
On the nose. It's a little spicy.
Yeah, so the Wild Turkey mash bill is higher rye content, so that's definitely spicier.
Yeah.
Right. So, what about taste?
I'm getting some spice, some baking spice.
Yep.
A little bit of apple. Okay. Are you getting stuff like that?
I'll tell you in a minute. I feel like we're playing Guess Who.
I know, right? Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna turn around and go, nope.
Is he wearing a hat?
Maybe it's like Clue.
Yeah. Does he have glasses?
No.
Now, you told me I've had this before. I don't remember.
You have had this before.
But
so spoiler alert for the listeners and people watching. We actually filmed an episode.
So apparently we did an episode of this.
But we didn't turn the damn audio on.
Well, we had multiple logistical issues.
And I think the camera was focused on the bottle instead of any of us.
One of the cameras was out of focus. I think we were all really drunk.
Allegedly.
Was I
Allegedly.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I don't remember. Well, this is pretty good. I don't know. I mean, this is pretty good. It feels hotter than the one I normally drink, which is a 10-year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the difference is that's probably 90 proof, and this one's 114.
Right.
So what do you think? Tasting notes? Any initial thoughts?
That might be the only minor knock on it that I would say that it's got a little bit of a tingle on the back of the throat that At 114, it's a higher proof, but I mean we've done some 119s, 120s that are
Sure
surprisingly smooth.
420s.
And this is a 13-year bourbon. It's not a 20-year bourbon, but it's still got a lot of body to it. I don't think it's too hot, and I don't think it's hotter than I actually
again though too.
can handle.
You talked about the older bourbons being a little smoother or whatever, more oak. So the rumor was this is blended older stock. Right. So I mean the guess is somewhere between so if they put a 13-year age statement, that's the minimum.
Yeah.
So it could be older and blended in. So my guess and what I've read online is probably 13 to 17, somewhere through there. So they blended it in. Yeah. I think Jeff's tasting notes are pretty good. That's what I would kind of say. I would say baking spice, and then I could see the apple, maybe like that streusel, like the kind of top,
that's
just a little crust. Right. It's almost a little crust. I don't know how to describe that part, but I can't pick out all the flavors in the flavor wheel. Like I don't sit there and study those, but my palate's kind of in the middle there. So let's talk a little bit of price on this one. This was a publicized release, but very difficult to find. Right. This was a very hard ball to come by.
Just because the amount released.
They didn't make many. Yeah. I can't even find the number. So it's pretty low. They released this at the distillery, but like 3 months after it came out in stores.
This is only in so it's been in the store and in the gift shop.
Yeah. So from my understanding,
this was in the stores.
It was. So
that makes sense.
It had national distribution, but time out before we go further with that. So, one of our big box stores here in other states too is Total Wine. Right. So in Total Wine at Hamburg in Lexington, Kentucky, I don't think they got more than like 12 of these at most.
Any store?
No, at that store. Like that store is probably the most selling. That in Lexington Green.
12 so between at one store.
Yep.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
So between the two stores, you're probably looking at under 30 bottles.
I really hate this whole thing about Kentucky distribution. When you live in Kentucky and you don't get distribution of stuff made in Kentucky.
I agree. But the other places, if they distribute this to Florida or wherever, they didn't get any more. Like it's not like they got more. So it's just they had such.
It's not a Weller situation.
No, it's not Weller. It's not Texas and Weller.
Yeah. What we ought to do is find somebody that works there, get them in cahoots with us,
kidnap them. Anyway, MSRP on this one is $70.
I was going to say 60.
Okay. Yeah. So let's compare that to the other one. So the base Russell's Reserve 10-year-old 90 proof $30-$40.
Yeah.
And if you go the private barrel selections, they're between $55 and $70.
Right.
So this is an upper end of the private barrel selection. It's more aged, more proof. So I think the MSRP at 70 is good with me.
I think even the few minutes it's been open in the glass, it's opened up a little more. Yeah.
It has.
Yeah, this bottle's only been open for a few minutes.
No, I mean just sitting in my glass, like it's open. It feels like it's opened up a little more in just a few minutes than the first sip.
So $70. Would you pay that for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, Matt.
Oh yeah.
100% all day, as much as I could buy. Yeah. So if you look secondary for this one, it started out around $250, $300. Right now it's at $450.
That's a lot.
But when it got named Whiskey of the Year,
going up.
And there's not many of them.
Getting at $450. Well,
how many unopened bottles of this are out there?
I mean, I'd say quite a few. If you go to some bars, you'll find them.
But like for people's collections, where they're like, I'm gonna sell that for $500.
They're holding on. Yeah. They're holding on. So this is going to be an annual release. Let me preface by saying that.
It's come back out.
But it's not confirmed. Like they said it's an annual release. It's not 100% confirmed. And then this one, again, it's supposed to be the older stock.
Right.
So 13 to 17 years. In the future it's going to be just 13. So it's probably going to change the flavor profile.
Although the 17 will change because it'll be in the future. So what's 17 today won't be 17 in the future. There'll be different 17s.
You just blew my mind, but I agree. So let's talk secondary. Let's say $450 right now. Would you pay $450 for this?
No.
Matt?
No, I don't think
I'm with you too. And I'm a Wild Turkey fan. I think $450 is too much. Whiskey of the Year, maybe. I don't know. I've not had.
So this is number one in his list.
This is number one.
I looked at the list. There were some things on there I didn't know what they were actually.
Well, me too.
I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. So it's hard for me to say. Like I can't say. I mean, some things I didn't know. I didn't know what
Seagrass was
until I saw the list and we went and bought it.
Well, exactly. The problem with some of these lists are if you have a bourbon or a rye, whatever, that wins an award, it could be a single barrel. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there might be 200 bottles of that, and they got one. Oh, this is the best bottle ever.
Well, he's obviously.
I can't taste it. You know what I mean? I can't taste it because I don't know. But this one, I mean, everybody in theory, had access to it. So, of all the other lists I've seen, it's a top 3 bourbon. So, I'm for this and that. I'm glad to get a chance to try it. $4.50, no.
Yeah.
So, while we're still got that drink, let's go to number 2 for 2021. So this is from the Barrell. They're actually Barrell Craft Spirits.
This is an interesting one.
Louisville, Kentucky. And I've seen these bottles, maybe not this exact one, on the shelf
I've seen
for
other
a while.
barrels, yeah.
I've never bought one. I thought the price point was a little bit too much for me.
For what it is, because they don't...
It's a blend.
Sure. So on this one, they're actually not making this rye. So this one here is the Barrell Seagrass. And here's what this one is. So it's rye whiskey finished in Martinique rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy barrels.
You say apricot?
I do say apricot.
Like apron?
I do.
That's not how you pronounce that word.
So when you look at this on the back, so always turn to the back to say where it's distilled. That's going to give you a clue where it's from. Bottled tells you where it's bottled. That doesn't matter. It's distilled, so where it's from. So this is distilled in Kentucky, Indiana, Tennessee, and Canada.
So it might be some Heaven Hill?
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So where do you think, if I said distilled in Kentucky, what do you think it'd be? Rye.
Yeah. I guess Heaven Hill, but I don't know.
You have a guess?
Distilled in Kentucky?
Yep. Doesn't tell you where. It's a rye whiskey.
I mean, it could be fucking anywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, I think Jeff's right. I think it's Heaven Hill.
Okay. Well,
I think it's Heaven Hill for sure.
Okay.
So Rittenhouse probably, and in Indiana, that you know what that is, MGP. Tennessee.
Right. Dickel.
Dickel. Yeah, Dickel. Right. That makes sense. Dickel. Right.
And in Canada, so Canadian rye. I mean, honestly, that one is going to be
Who's a big Canadian rye producer?
so Alberta. Yeah, so it's Alberta Distillers.
Okay.
That's where it's at. Yeah. So anyway, this is a blend of 4 different ryes, and then they finished it in those different barrels. So let's give it a try.
So to go over that, what you just said, there's NDA, which is what you were talking about, Jason. That's non-disclosure.
Oh, good call.
NDP is
They don't distill.
non-distillery producer.
Yep.
So it's common for. So the reason not to disclose.
Well, so Jacob brought this point up, and we'll go over it here. So an NDA is where you can't disclose where it's from. An NDP means that you're not making anything. So if you're an NDP, you do not produce any product.
So the reason for a bottler, let's call them for a second, to not disclose is what?
Well, why would you? What's your incentive?
Why not say where it came from?
You should talk as you pour.
Yeah, pour that.
Because that way it could keep coming around.
Take it easy, part cheesy. Easy there, Brown Bear.
So you can pass it to me.
Easy there, Brown Bear.
So if I say Indiana, my
we know it's going to be if you
directly to MGP.
Right. So we're going to guess that one pretty easily.
Yeah, but let me explain. So MGP has a history, like they're a higher standard for me. Like I think good things.
So many places to get their juice from there,
but it's good stuff.
Right.
Like MGP makes a quality product.
So why not just say MGP?
They can't probably. It's probably the agreement they signed. But if you say Kentucky distilled, then I don't know. I mean, what's the first rye producer in Kentucky you think of? What comes to mind? I mean, you said Heaven Hill, but I mean Rittenhouse. You know,
it could be something else.
It could be something else.
I have no idea.
So, but if you say Canadian rye, it's like I don't know.
Does Old Forester distill their own rye?
Yeah.
So why not that?
I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying. It could literally be anything.
Yeah.
But I think it's Heaven Hill. But I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know.
But
that's my guess.
I guess my question is, and people who know far more than me,
but when you say Tennessee,
we'll have an answer. But
what's that?
But if you put the names on the back, No, but I'm just saying, if you did, wouldn't it help the consumer think, oh, that's a good product, or no?
No, that's the problem. Do you want the consumer to know?
I don't know.
Or do you want to?
I'm just asking.
You want to introduce an air of mystique to it.
But okay, so that's a good point that you just made. I think the mystique part.
Yep.
But if you said Heaven Hill, let's just guess for a second. Heaven Hill, Dickel, and MGP. Someone like, oh, those are good. Those are fine. I understand that could be quality.
I think
or
when you
leave it as mystique.
If you start naming the brands that you're blending on there, it takes away from your own brand.
Gotcha.
So all of a sudden it becomes somebody else's bourbon and not yours.
You're diminishing your brand.
Literally, exactly.
Now, of course, we know there are places like what's the one that does the rhetoric? Orphan Barrel. That we know they don't make anything. So if they told
they
you,
allegedly find old barrels that somebody forgot about, which is
they're gonna diminish their $100 or whatever, $150,
probably $200 to $500. Yeah,
Well, I think Red Oak's only 100. Is it more than 100 now?
I think it's more than 100.
Oh, it used to be 100.
Yeah.
It used to be 100.
Well, they have different years, like
Yeah.
Rhetoric 23. I don't know.
God, have you seen that
Different
fucking
years.
box set?
Oh, it's insane.
But I guess you're right. I guess it would mean like we can't charge as much and we can't have the mystique around our brand if we'd say it. That makes sense.
Well,
But also, like for me, all the brands in the back, none of them really deter me except Dickel. Like, we've had like this.
You don't like Dickel?
I don't. I just don't. I mean, we've had some good ones. We have. So remember those? What were they? Jepsons.
Yeah.
they were pretty
Yeah.
good.
Oh,
They
the
were better than we
Jepsons, right.
thought, but
Yeah.
they're not MGP. They're not.
enjoyed
they're not,
that Dickel.
I mean, I did.
You like Dickel?
I did like that Dickel. That
Big
one.
Dickel or little Dickel?
I mean, it was medium. I think.
he had quite a bit of Dickel.
So this one here. So this is
a really interesting one.
Yeah, it's a blended rye finished in different barrels. I mean, honestly, it might not be. I'll give my tasting notes first. So it might not be the best rye I've ever had. I'll say that first off. But I think it's one of the most unique. Like it is, it's almost like a mixed drink. That's a high proof mixed drink. Like
Right.
there's a lot of flavor.
I've
coming
been
through.
drinking this with a cube in it, and right now we're drinking it neat.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't find it super hot neat like you were saying before.
Well,
This
again,
one-
neck
this-
pour, right? So the first pour you had.
Yeah, and there is something about this specific one. It doesn't kill me at the very end. It's
a little
very
bit,
back, just a little bit. Yeah, it's just more
But it's
than
got
I
that,
prefer.
that fruity taste to it.
It's very interesting. I can't call this. I don't even feel comfortable calling this a rye.
It's not spicy like other ryes.
So
It's-
what would you compare
so-
this to that you've had?
That's a good question.
Can you think of anything?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I've got two answers,
Okay.
but I want to hear your. You know
I mean,
anything?
I really don't know.
Maybe some sort of like blended brandy,
Okay.
right?
So I think the two closest I can think of, one of them's a little bit off, is a mixed drink. It's almost like an old fashioned that's proofed up. That's proofed
that's a
up.
good comparison.
Yeah.
But the other one, I think, the closest I can get to it, that's just a bourbon or rye, is Angel's Envy.
Okay,
It's
I
Madeira.
kinda
I
get
think
what
it's
you're
port.
saying
I think it's
because
port finished in Angel's
they
Envy.
do have that port finish.
I mean, it's not the same, but
It doesn't
it's a
taste like Angel's
ballpark,
Envy
right?
to me, but I
No,
get
it doesn't.
I get
It
what
doesn't.
you're saying. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But it's literally, to me, it's almost like I have a mixed drink without. It's a high proof mixed drink without mixing.
I kind of
right?
like your old fashioned comparison.
Yeah.
I like the old fashioned. I get what you're saying about the Angel Envy. And the thing is, Angel Envy is my go-to rye, just because
I like it
it's
too.
a little pricier, but you can get
pricey,
it. You don't have to like fucking hunt it down. And I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but I get what you're saying.
Well, it's the only thing I can think of, like finished, right? You know,
Right,
if you
yeah.
think of rye,
I
like,
do get-
like an Old Forester rye, 100 proof.
I love Old
That's-
Forester.
I agree, but
if I
it's
had to
not
go
finished.
if
you
I had
know?
to go
it's
with
not.
another rye, that is probably the comparison that I would draw.
So
That's
let's
good.
talk.
Both those are two good comparisons. I think you're making.
Well, thank you. So that's the first compliment you ever given me.
Ever in our
I'm gonna go
entire
ahead and quit.
relationship.
I'm gonna go ahead and quit.
In our entire relationship.
Are we going
Jesus
out?
Christ.
Are we going out?
Yeah, that's the first time I've complimented you in all the years I've known you.
Are we
It's like
official?
15 years now.
I think we're steady now.
So let's talk about price on this one. So the retail on this was $90. So I think
That's
it's
right.
I think it's a little pricey if you just see
Right.
barrel, but with all the different finishes, with all the different barrel finished, I mean, man, I think that's actually a good deal. Like I don't think $90 is out of the ballpark for this, and there's really no secondary on it yet. So
Right.
there might be, because this is the number 2 whiskey from Fred Minnick of 2021. So I think
Right.
there might be some secondary coming, but right now we bought this recently on the shelf.
Yeah.
So
I would trying this, and if you look at it from a purist perspective, I can't really see bourbon enthusiasts getting excited for this. I don't mean that it's bad. I think it's great. I think it's tasty. It's
really good.
But from somebody that is just like waxing poetic about like age statements and like, barrel profiles, when you say like this has been blended with Madeira and port, what else was it?
So these are actually Martinique rum, Madeira, and apricot brandy barrels.
I think most people that are in the bourbon game would see this or would try this and be like, no, this is a bastardization of what I'm used to.
I see what you're saying, but I think
it's
you're
bad.
talking from a purist standpoint. If you think about okay, so let's talk beer and bourbon both. So we talk about new money, people that are
Right.
newer into the hobby. I don't know if they have the palate to taste barrel strength
No, they
bourbons
don't.
or ryes.
But I think that's the problem
This is
because
a mixed drink.
they lean on the people that do.
Oh, well, when somebody
not saying Fred
somebody
Minnick.
releases a list, I mean, Fred Minnick, Like him, love him, hate him. He's a well-known name.
Right,
So
yeah.
when
But
he releases a list, Jesus Christ, it's the gospel.
Yeah.
It's like the 10 Commandments come down.
I think the people that have,
it's on stone too.
I think most people that are like into bourbon would be like, it's good for what it is, but it's not what I want. And I think the people that are new into it are going to listen to those guys.
I kind of like the idea that if someone comes to my house and they know a little bit about bourbon and they want to drink something or whiskey or whatever,
You're going
I'll
to
be
kick
like,
them out.
That's going to happen afterwards, after they use my bathroom. But the first thing is,
I wouldn't even let them use my bathroom.
They
drop
don't
the
wipe down the
deuce.
seat. It's a whole issue. But here, actually, I think look at you. But the other thing is, like, don't you think if you have guests and you'd be like, hey, you want to try something a little different, something a little unique? This is the kind of thing you could open up and be like, yo.
But I think that's why it became in his list number 2, like his top of the list, because there's nothing like this.
No, there's
like when I compare it to Angel's Envy, I'm stretching.
So
when I
here's-
compare it to Cocktail, I'm stretching.
Here's a fun analogy that I think you will know. I won't probably know.
He won't.
Yeah,
Is it about
we went-
cars?
this is harkening
Chickens?
back to we've talked a couple of times about FOBAB, the festival of barrel aged beers, and like 5 or 6 years ago, this FOBAB festival in Chicago.
Is that what you threw up on the train?
It was actually. They crown they do medals. They do like awards for like the best beer.
We don't need no sneaking medals.
They released their awards for FOBAB, and back then the gold medal was Listermann Chicao.
Oh my God.
Do you remember this? And Chicao was a beer that was an adjuncted
I'm the
with
only one here who
hazelnut.
likes Listermann.
Yeah, so it was.
Don't get me started.
It was god awful. Like nobody that actually appreciates beer likes this beer. It tasted so artificial. It was like chalk dust, and it was thick, but it was just like gross.
But it's a winner.
And it was winter. You know why?
Because of chicken dinner.
Because it won.
Because it
won?
Because it was different.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
the only
I
thing that
agree.
we could attribute is
agree.
that like it's like we said, you go into the festival of barrel aged beers, everything kind of after 2 hours of drinking, everything kind of tastes the same. This one stuck out because it
that's a
was
good
just
point.
like a steak knife in the neck because it was so different.
right.
And then like if somebody does that to you, you're like, oh well, this one is breaking apart from the pack. So I think this gives we gotta give some
I
credit.
don't know. I mean, I think this is
No,
good. I don't
with that.
know.
I agree with that. I think it goes back to what
think
Jeff
it's
was
good
talking
now.
about in earlier episodes on beer, saying, oh, they put vanilla in that. I mean, at some point, it's like, oh, okay, it's a
Right.
10-year-old bourbon, 13-year-old
I mean,
bourbon. Like, what'd you do to it?
We
You
know
what's new.
with alcohol, or particularly with beer, there's a little. I think there's a lot of stagnation with beer these days. Whether it's hazies or barrel aged, we're getting the same thing over and over again. I mean, we can put tons of barrel aged beers in front of us or tons of haze in front of us, and we cannot take the same brewery and look at 5 of their
Haze
haze
is a perfect
and not.
example,
We can
but
say all
it
5
is.
beers from this brewery that are haze taste really good, but we can't tell the difference. We couldn't name them.
Not anymore. No,
And
we
they're the
pretended
same-
we could at first.
And they're the same base anyways with different hop profiles, but whatever. Bourbon, I mean, sometimes the same thing. It just depends, but we're looking at, it's hard to differentiate each product for the consumer taste, which wants something new all the time.
Well, I think what bourbon offers, bourbon already has some of these different finishes. You're seeing a lot with that Nulu brand. They have tons of toasted barrel and apple brandy barrel, whatever. And they might not be the best, but they're new, they're interesting, right? I mean, at least gives you a different angle. So from rye's kind of forgotten. Rye's just rye. The only other finished rye I know was Angel's Envy, and this is just another layer on that.
Angel's Envy was a little different because they were using casks and different things.
Same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same.
And even Woodford Reserve, although I don't think Woodford Reserve is worth the money, they do something different. They do the port cask.
Talking about finished stuff.
Yeah, for finishing. They
But
do
I
some
mean,
different things.
you know, for $9 for this one, for me,
I think it was
I
worth
think it's
it.
borderline worth it. Like, I'm not buying another bottle, but I think $9 for one, I'm not mad at my purchase.
When you have guests over and you put this in front of them, they're going to be like, that's cool.
or if I want a cocktail but don't want to mix a cocktail,
I don't think I'm mixing this.
but that's-
I'm not mixing that. I think it's already mixed in my
That's what I'm
mind.
saying.
It's kind of already mixed.
Exactly right. I
mean,
think this is too tangential for people to appreciate in the long run.
I get you.
so I think it's worth it on the primary side, the MSRP, but secondary, there's none there. I see why there's none there, but it's worth a shot. And then, I mean, the list 1 and 2 top bourbons or top whiskeys 2021, it's all subjective, but I can see it. I mean, I think the Russell Reserve's great. I think this one's interesting. It's good. Maybe it's not number 2, but hey, it's unique. So I'm good with it.
But if you're good with it, I'm good with it.
Oh, hell. I'm done. I'm done.